Hey, everybody. Welcome to Coffee with Kate. I'm super excited to have you all here today. It is Wednesday, November 6th, and I hope you're tuning from wherever you're tuning in that you're all doing pretty well today. I'm super excited to have my coach, my dear friend, Betsy Clark, here today. We're going to be talking about positive intelligence. We're going to be talking about active hope, sharing some stories because Betsy's had quite a journey these last past year or so. So I want to just share a little bit about Betsy before we get started. So welcome, Betsy. I hope you have your mug and your coffee. I've got one of those mugs too. So Betsy's been a successful entrepreneur for over 45 years, previously working in interior design. Now listen closely, everybody. She created beauty with paint. Now she uses words. From refining spaces to reshaping lives, that she continues to create beauty. As a seasoned coach, Betsy passionately assists women to embrace and impact their potential. What was that? Oh, okay. Supporting women to utilize their unique brilliance, empowering them to find their path and purpose in order to live a fulfilled and juicy life, one of Betsy's favorite words, to be true to you, to get clarity, to find your voice and not lose your soul in business. Betsy lives in Colorado Springs with her husband and many dogs who are truly happy campers. They travel frequently in their truck camper to play with their kids and grandkids to soak up the beauty of Colorado and the Wild West. So welcome, Betsy. Cheers.
Thank you, Kate. Cheers.
I'm so glad you're back on my show. It's I think this might be your third time on my Coffee with Kate show in about 3 year period. And the shows that I do with you are usually one of my most watched episodes. So welcome back and thank you.
Thank you.
And Kathy Graham just popped on. Hello, Kathy Graham. So Betsy is actually my coach, and I have also been working with Betsy on some other visibility work that we've been doing. And in this past year, Betsy has had quite a journey on a personal and business level. So let's start with that, Betsy. Betsy, kind of just fill us in, give us the little snapshot of what's been going on, because what not only happened in your personal life is affecting the work that you do in your coaching.
It has been quite a ride. And last July, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and had to face the reality of, this wasn't on my dance card. And how was I going to deal with it? And, I wouldn't wish this on anybody. And if you are in the midst of this journey, I want to say kudos to you. I'm with you. And at times it can be a lonely place to be. And there've just been a ton of benefits in the midst of this. And I did end up having surgery, and that was my choice of treatment. And I know everybody does it differently. But one of the things I realized was everybody is different. But I also realized that every body is different. And so it really parallels what I believe and coach to is you need to be true to you because this is your life. And I want you to just celebrate that, embrace that, and do it the way that you are led to do because only you can live your life. Oscar Wilde has this great quote, be yourself, everybody else is taken. And that is my mantra in life is you do you, as our dear friend Tricia Turpinoff used to always say, you do you. And that's how I went through this cancer journey. One of the things that popped up for me, it was an old idea that my first coach, 15 years ago shared with me, and it was called active hope. And I really had to embrace that, Kate. And what came out of that was a teaching called the AAA effect. Do you mind if I share that?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
So the first A in AAA effect is awareness. And so that's having a heightened awareness. And it's like having the veil removed from your eyes. You see things that you hadn't necessarily seen before. I guess it's consciously paying attention and being willing to consider the new information. Because I never saw myself as a cancer girl. That was the first time
Mhm.
I never heard, oh, you have cancer.
Right.
And so the second A is that's the natural progression from my standpoint is acceptance, being realistic and honest and going, yeah, I guess cancer does describe the place I am right now. And have you ever heard the term, Kate, it is what it is?
Yes, I have, and you and I have discussed this at length, and I have a whole new way of thinking about that phrase based on what you've said. So share your perspective.
Well, that that phrase, I love words, and so certain phrases just drive me crazy, and it is what it is, kind of drives me crazy. Because the truth of the matter is, if I had said it is what it is, I've got cancer, I'm going to always have cancer, I'm always going to be a cancer girl, that's not okay with me. And so I like to look at it as it is what I make it.
Yes.
It is, it is, it is, but it's the stories I'm telling myself that I'm making up about this stuff. I have cancer. I've had a mastectomy. This is going to change me. Everybody's going to know. I mean, like, yada, 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 like yammer, yammer, yammer. That just doesn't work for me. And so I may not like it.
Mhm.
And, honestly, this is the day after the election, and I'm not going to get political, but you know what? This is where we're at.
Mhm.
And you may not like the way you're feeling today, but it's our reality. What are we going to do with it? And so I think acceptance is a beautiful thing, and it's what we make of it.
Absolutely.
The
Absolutely. And I know we're gonna get into this in a little bit about PQ or positive intelligence, about the book and by Dr. Shirzad Shamin that you and I have been working with and in and everything. Is that statement, it is what it is, or that expression um, goes against everything when we talk about PQ, right? Positive intelligence too.
Yeah, and I like I like that place of acceptance because it feels more empowering. It has more potential for something working out. Because here's the definition of hope. Hope isn't like I think hope is a bad business strategy because
Mhm.
you're willing to just sit on your couch and twiddle your thumbs and wait for your ship to come in. But active hope is, you know what, you go down, you send out more ships, you go down and you check the wharves and you're looking at the horizon all the time. You're actively engaged in your reality.
Right.
So that's where I think the acceptance piece is. It moves us on to the next step, which is the third A is action. You mobilize to get her done. You're being able to respond in a way that is congruent with who you be.
Mhm.
And I think for me, and I promise I won't sing, but one of my
You're
favorite
a great
songs
singer.
but one of my favorite songs is from West Side Story. It's something's coming. I don't know what it is, but it is gonna be great. That's anticipation. And that's what greases the wheel of the AAA effect is that anticipation to keep it moving. So we go from awareness to acceptance to action, and then we go right back up to new awareness. So it's this circle that keeps going on. And I just love that idea. How can we be open to possibilities? How can we be more expansive instead of constrictive? Because we come from a place of acceptance, or awareness, acceptance, and action. And I'm anticipating something good. I'm anticipating something good because hope is now, but hope is also future. The
Right.
spark we get when we receive hope takes us through to the future. And hope is that things will work out well.
Yes, exactly. One of the things I've heard you speak about from the stage when you talk about the difference or the discernment or the distinction between hope and active hope is from a business standpoint, hope is not a good business strategy.
Right, right. Yep.
So just for the people who don't know this message as much that might be listening, and especially listening to the replay, and thank you all for being on the replay. Kind of just speak to that a little bit, the difference between hope and active hope, and from an entrepreneurial standpoint. I mean, and I know that what we as entrepreneurs, our lives and our businesses are really pretty much married together. But I love when you say and you make that point is that, hope is not a good business strategy. So I'll let you expand from there.
Well, I kind of touched on it earlier, but um, hope is, sitting on the couch waiting for your ship to come in
Yeah.
and not doing anything about it.
Right.
But the active hope is putting wheels on that. So you go out to the wharf and you send out more ships and you check the horizon and you look to see, is there fruit? And if there isn't fruit, you do something about it. And
Right.
so, I mean, I think that's the piece that differentiates hope from active hope, because we feel disempowered when we're just sitting on our couch waiting for someone else to be our answer. And the truth is, we have to get into action and create our own reality, because I can't live someone else's life and you can't live my life. And if we want things to change, we have to step into that. And the whole thing about is potential is unharnessed energy. And if we want to reach our potential, we have to harness our energy and our power to create the things that we really want. And so that's why I pitch myself as a career direction and a wealth potential expert.
Wealth potential. I love that.
Wealth potential.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And so, wealth isn't just money.
No.
Wealth is, it's having a purpose. It's the freedom. It's aligning with your values and the fulfillment. Like, my dad lived to be 100, and at his celebration of life, I started by saying my dad was the wealthiest man I've ever met in my life. And it was about his connections. It was about his relationships. It was about living life in a fulfilled fashion. For his 90th birthday, we did something. We all went down and met in the Cape, and it was a house that housed 24 people. And we had Thanksgiving dinner, and we were sitting around celebrating his birthday, having Thanksgiving. And someone said, why don't we give thanks for who Grandpa is in our life? And we spent over 2 hours talking about my dad.
Oh, wow.
How he lived a quietly extraordinary life. And, he impacted people incredibly. And to be able to have a living eulogy for someone that you love, to talk about the wealth that they brought into our lives and the wealth that he modeled in our family was enormous. And so, what is wealth to you? And how are you going to live that out going forward? Because it's always there. It's always there. You get to decide how wealthy, how juicy your life is. And that, to me, is wealth.
I agree 100%, and it's something that you and I are working on too, with in my work and my perspectives and choices and opportunities. So, what would you give as for our listeners today? When you say what you just say, what would be a good starting point for them? Not only to ask themselves that question, what does wealth mean to you, or what is wealth for you? What would be an action they could take to reveal that to themselves? Like journaling, I mean, do you have a juicy tip that somebody could do to figure that out?
Hire a coach.
Good answer.
Well, honestly, Kate, we can't see our own eyebrows, and we get in our own way all the time. And the truth is, my coach, and I wouldn't hire a coach that doesn't have a coach. I'll just really put it out there like that, because I think it matters. My coach is always saying, "Oh, Betsy, you've got another whole concept that you're gonna leverage, and you got another concept." Well, you know what? Those concepts are my modules. Because here's the thing: is we don't take the time to invest in ourselves And so many people say, well, I'm just going to reinvent myself. That's another one that just makes me go ballistic on the inside, because you know what? You are inherently incredibly uniquely brilliant. Don't throw out the good stuff. Let's leverage all that's right with you, all that's good with you, and reinvest. It's reinvesting in who you be. And
Mhm.
so that's not going to happen if you just keep re-examining the same things over and over and over again. So do your work. And honestly, doing the inner work is not always the easiest thing to do,
Right.
but it's the thing that's going
Ask me
to.
how I know.
Well, here's the thing. Like, if you don't get anything from this conversation, I want you to write this down. And, if you're driving, don't write this down. But if you don't know what you stand for, you'll fall for anything. And we're seeing that culturally. We don't take the time to think. And if you aren't getting the results that you want, you need to take time to understand and be true to you. What are your values? What are your goals? What do you want to do? What are you shooting for at the end of your life? What is your biggest regret?
Right.
And reverse engineer that,
Mhm.
because Dad died at 100 and he lived a quietly extraordinary life. They did a thing in the Boston Globe about my dad. And he wasn't a headliner, but he just lived life in a very intentional fashion. He
Absolutely.
knew exactly what he wanted. He lived a fulfilled life. And this is I get really passionate about this. But don't live a life that's just meh. Go live a juicy life. This is your life. Mary Oliver talks about it. What are you going to do with this one extraordinary life? Right?
Yeah.
I think I botched it, but you know what I'm talking about. What?
No, you didn't botch it.
Yeah, but what are you going to do with this one life?
Mhm.
And how do we spend so much time being externally focused? I hope they like me.
Mhm.
I need their permission. I need their acceptance. I need their affirmation and it's like, wait, what about you? What do
Mhm.
you think about you? Because if you don't think about you, how are you going to do you in a way that's authentic, that aligns with your purpose, your values? I I think I'm just being redundant here, but
No, you're being passionate. I mean, you are, you're, as I've said to you many times, and I know you're my dear friend. I think you're one of the wisest women I know. Um,
well,
and I see you, and when if anybody is familiar with PQ, we talk about the saboteurs, but we want to talk about living in your sage. And I think of you not only living in your sage, Betsy, but I think of you as a sage.
oh, thank
And so and that's one of the reasons I I love you so much. So I'm
no,
gonna get a
thank
little mushy there for a second, but
you.
this is my show, so I can do what I want.
There you
um,
go.
so it was interesting. A mutual friend of ours, Karen Miller-Wise Jones, put a comment up earlier. She says, "I dislike it when someone says I'm waiting for God to tell me what to do, while at the same time they are doing nothing to influence their future." Again, like you say, hope isn't a strategy. So that obviously resonated with Karen, and I'm
Yeah,
sure many others.
I think I wrestle with when you ask someone a powerful question and their knee-jerk reaction is, I don't know.
Mhm.
And my first thought, call me snarky, is, well, that's convenient. And the truth is, if you want to live life authentically, you have got to do your own work. And that's one of the reasons why I think hiring a coach is really important. And I think that's one of the reasons I'm one of the first persons you need to hire, or someone else who's going to give you perspective. And I don't like the word mindset, because I think it's been cheapened, but someone who's going to challenge you to go deep with what your values are. What are your goals? How are you going to get there? And I can think of a handful of coaches that I would recommend you work with, because collaboratively we toggle off of each other's work. So
Mhm.
this isn't just one person is going to be the answer. You need a team of people who are committed to bringing out your juiciness, your brilliance, those things that you have hidden for years because it's easier to hide than it is to be visible.
Yes, exactly. Oh, now you're speaking my language. So, Elizabeth Rosner, Dr. Roz, asked a question earlier. Betsy, can you talk more about connections? How do we make intentional connections?
How do we make intentional connections? Well, I think it goes back to what are you looking for? Personally, I am very, very invested in an organization called eWomen Network. And we do connections, I think, in a really refined way. We aren't just throwing business cards at each other because as entrepreneurs and businesswomen, we're just thinking, I need to get more clients. I need, it's like this desperation.
Right.
But what if we worked at connecting with people in a genuine fashion and we created a relationship with them before trying to pitch them and make money off of them?
Mhm.
I mean,
Amen.
and what if we had conversations as opposed to just proving that we're right?
Mhm.
Because I think it's easy to say, do you want to be right or do you want to be connected? And a
Mhm.
lot of people don't ask that question. They just want to be right. They want to be validated.
Right.
They want to be seen as an expert.
Mhm.
But what if we connected first before we made that judgment?
You are, this is what I work on with my clients. So whether it's working with them on their personal brand identity or their LinkedIn profile or their PR and how, visibility, which is what I work with them on, is the antidote to invisibility, right? But it all has to
Trusting.
start with connection and or relationship. It just has to. When I go to a networking event or when I go speak at an event, obviously, I am there because I'm hoping that eventually I might make a transaction, but that's not my immediate intention when I walk in the room. I am there to see people, to listen to them, to ask questions, to learn about them, to literally make that connection, that intentional connection, because that is what builds trust and it's also what builds people into like knowing who you are as a whole person versus just your job title or just your skill sets. It's what builds connection. And for the kind of work that a lot of us do, between Julie Miller Davis, who's on here, and Dr. Roz and Karen Miller Wise Jones, and even Kathy Graham with her great client appreciation gifts and things like that, we are all wanting a positive impact. We all want people to be successful. We all want to reach people and help make change, right? For the good. And it has to start with the connection piece. And if the transaction eventually happens, then that was organic and meant to be, and great.
Yeah.
But those organizations that I've belonged to in the past, where you walk in and start handing out business cards and just like it's like your whole goal is to like leave that place and have a client in the pocket. And I don't think that way anymore. I don't even it doesn't I can't even fathom that anymore.
Well, I think that when we go for connection and relationship, we leave desperation behind.
Mhm.
And, you know, there's another phrase that drives me crazy. And so I'm just showing my slip all over the place today. Is I the phrase I do business with people I know, like, and trust
Mhm.
makes me certifiable because I think it goes back to Dr. Roz's great question about connection is I do business with people I know what they're talking about.
Yep.
That's the know. I also do business with people who care. I'm
Right.
not part of a quota.
Yes.
They care. They care about me getting results. They care about me as an individual.
Mhm.
And trust. Trust changes everything. So it's know, care, and trust. And the know isn't about if I know them individually, because I know a lot of people I won't do business with.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's all about knowing your right fit client, right? Too. So, and even when I go and speak on stage, and you and I have talked about this before, and maybe my freebie call to action is to get on a 30-minute discovery call with me. And I always say to them, get on a call with me. Tell me what challenges you're having with your brand, or you have a LinkedIn question or whatever, because I'm going to get on that call with them. I'm building a relationship. I'm serving them, right? Because I want to, not because I'm hoping they'll be a client. But I'm giving them something valuable, and that goes back to the values, right? Our personal integrity and things like that. And I would rather do that than the other way around, to just be pitchy, salesy. I just think that the connection piece is so important. Kathy Graham made a good comment. She said, and that connection does not happen overnight. It takes time and it lasts longer. And she's spot on. So I also want to share something else here. I'm going to put this up. Karen just made a little kind of a testimonial for you here, Betsy, in the best sense. When I once was facing a difficult dilemma, Betsy coached me as I faced my difficult choices. She said, how will that course of action serve you? I've used that response many times since then to find clarity. How will X, Y, and Z course of action serve me? Thank you, Betsy is a sage.
Thank you, Karen. I'm glad that you invited me into that moment to have that conversation.
So thank you, Karen, for sharing that. And, I will echo it too. I would not be where I am in my business had I not done, originally our work together was, you're also a Gallup certified strengths coach.
Yeah.
And when we dug into my strengths and you Betsy-ized them, was so great. It was, I've done Myers-Briggs, I've done Enneagram, I've done all these various things over the years, and they showed me something, but they didn't click with me. I didn't connect really with them until we did this Gallup work. And then we did the one-on-one work together. It opened my eyes, and not only opened my eyes to myself, but it opened my eyes to how would I build those relationships? How might this help my sales conversation when it comes to that? How might it help in my final work with my client? You're the one that actually came up with the term that I'm using in my new talk now, that visibility is the antidote to invisibility. That was one of your juicy gems. And so it's all about perspective. I remember when you and I were driving to Denver back in April, and we were talking about something that we'd been given an opportunity to do. And it was grim. It was, the reason for it was not grim for us. It was just the circumstance. We stepped in to help. And you said something to me about, like, we have been given an opportunity. And it's also relates to the work that you're doing with PQ, working on that with me and others, is we can always see the gift, even when something is terrible, even when something is really challenging. And I'd love you to just kind of speak to that in your own way.
Thank you. My coach, when I told her that I'd been diagnosed with cancer, she said, is this good or is this bad? I don't know. And I didn't really know how to respond to that. I was like, wait, what? I don't know if I'm going to be here in a year. Right. How can you say you don't know?
Right.
And it was a very sobering statement for her to say. And I've adopted that. Mm-hmm. I have a very limited scope of what's to come. And if I can come at these situations, and I was already on another call this morning, so I can't remember if I said it to you or not. But honestly, this cancer piece really had a lot of benefit for me. There was a lot of benefit. And I want to be open to possibility. I want to be open to potential. I want to be expansive in how I view today, because all I've got is today.
Right.
And the truth is, the day we die is today. Mm-hmm. We only die once. All we've got is this one day. This is all we've got. So I'm not going to project about what's just happened in our world. I'm not going to project. I'm just going to deal with what I can deal with, which is today.
Right.
And so I don't know if that answered your question, but
No, it absolutely does. I also kind of want to just, I like one of the things I learned years ago to be an effective interviewer is to sometimes, I don't want, I hate the term devil's advocate, but that's the only thing that comes to my brain. I'm going to just kind of look at something from a different perspective because I know you're going to have a take on it. For those who might be listening to this and hearing us talk and all of these, juicy nuggets that you're giving us, and I've learned them firsthand through you, and I'm living them, and I see the difference, as to have many other people here who have attested to that. If there was somebody listening going, okay, Betsy, well, that all sounds really good, but it's kind of like Pollyanna-ish. How might you respond? And especially even from the standpoint, maybe with the PQ, with the positive intelligence piece in mind, maybe answer that. And then if you want to, if it feels appropriate, kind of talk about in PQ, the difference between the saboteurs and the sage. Maybe there's a correlation that you can tie in there.
So the premise of PQ is mental fitness. And we all have that inner critic that tells us we're not enough. We'll never amount to anything. You're just like your mother. You're just like your father. Why aren't you as pretty as your sister? Fill in the blank. You're not worthy to make money. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And that judge shuts us down. And, the judge
is one of the saboteurs, just to.
Judge is one of the saboteurs. And what I work to do with the PQ work is to silence those as much as we are able. We'll never get rid of them, by shrinking the neural pathways and by using a different part of our brain, which is the sage, which is the side of the brain, the part of the brain that Karen Miller-Wise-Jones was talking about. Is how does this serve you? The sage is an advocate for it serves us. And what I love about that is it helps us move into potential. And there are a series of questions that you can ask, like, what does empathy say? Because if I talk to you, Kate, the way I talk to myself, you and I would not have a relationship. Really? I mean, I'm so hard on myself, no one would hire me as a coach. But over the years, I've learned how to show myself grace, not an excuse, but by empathizing with myself, by exploring what are the possibilities. I'm looking at this, if you think of a pie, I may be only seeing 15% of the whole picture. What would moving a little bit to the side, what would my view be? How can I expand my point of view? And that's what curiosity will help us do, so that we can innovate. We have a new iteration. We know how to navigate that and get into action. And to me, that's just such a juicy, fulfilling way to get out of our own way. But it doesn't happen overnight. You didn't get here to this place overnight. It takes a while to work this through. And we can't do it alone because we are so stinking subjective. And that's what also works with the strengths work, is you ask someone what their strengths are, and they go, I don't know. And you don't have the vocabulary, you don't have the words, you don't know how to articulate it. So we've been told to be humble. Don't brag about what you do right. Well, I'm saying, yeah, do. It's time that you start speaking the truth about who you are and what you bring to the table. But there's another side, and I think was helpful when you and I would just sort of play with this idea of, what do you need?
Yeah.
I was raised in the 50s and the 60s, and we were told not to be high needs or needy.
Right. Oh, I was brought up the same way.
Biggest insult you could have. But there are things that, based on your personality, your experience, your dreams, and your values, there are things that you need to be fully expressed as Kate Paine. There are certain things that I need to be fully expressed as Betsy. So what if we own those things? Because back in the day, we used to say, well, step into your power. Well,
Yeah.
some of us don't even know that we have power.
Mhm.
What is power? We've been so oppressed for so long because of the judge and because of other people's opinions of us, because we've lived life so externally. I'm saying, let's get still. Let's get quiet. Let's go inside so that you can be true to you, so that the fruit and the fulfillment and the juicy wealth that you create aligns with you at your last breath, so you don't have regrets.
Right.
What does a regret-free life look like for you?
And you can start now.
And you can start right now.
Yep. Yep. So one of the parts of my question also was like, for the person who's going, okay, that all sounds good, but what am I going to be, a positive thinker, a Pollyanna? What might you say to somebody like that? And I don't mean that in a flip way. I just mean like, how would you, because even when I've talked about this with certain people in my life, they've had a little bit of an edge about it. And I've figured out how to cope with it, but I didn't expect it, because it's like, I've had this awareness, I'm putting it into action. It's working for me. It's not perfect, and it doesn't happen overnight. And it doesn't happen when we just, we pause when we do some of the PQ reps and the things that Shirzad advises that help us pause and breathe. But how might you respond to that, to somebody who's sort of a little contrarian?
I am high in positivity when you look at the Strengths Finder assessment. And I have had it pitched, oh, Betsy, you are a Pollyanna, just like you said. I like to counter with and say, no, I'm an informed optimist,
I love that.
because I think in possibilities.
Hmm.
I think in terms of potential. And if that's Pollyanna,
So
okay,
whatever.
knock yourself out and be Eeyore for the rest of your life if you want to. You choose. I mean,
Right.
you choose.
Right.
And so I've just found that giving things the opportunity, maybe it's about opportunity. It's about
Yeah.
potential. It's about
Right.
possibility. I think that's expansive. The other way is very restrictive and constricted. And I am too big of a personality to be a small personality.
Yeah.
And I don't want to live a small life. I want to go out in gusto. I want to live fulfilled. I want to live a vibrant life. I want to be juicy. I want to, and if I say something that's offensive, I'm not trying to offend. I'm just trying to poke holes in these paradigms that we've never questioned. I really believe we need to question our answers and don't believe everything you think.
Right. You
And
just made me think of something with what you just said. There was a time, after you knew your cancer was clear and you had to go. I mean, it didn't happen overnight. It took months and tests and stuff to really keep reaffirming that it was clear. And one of the things you talked about in a show that you just appeared on, Talking with Terry TV, and I've also heard you speak about it from stage, is even the language that you put around what many people say, battling cancer or fighting cancer. And you said, I don't want to use that language. And some people may, and that's up to them. But for me and my cancer journey, meaning yours, is I've conquered cancer. Can you just sort of play that out for us a little bit, and how that came to be for you and your intention behind that thinking?
um, I take issue with conquering, or I take issue with battling, because it feels really dramatic.
Mhm.
I did not want drama in my cancer journey. It was enough of a quote unquote struggle to stay focused.
I can't believe you used that word.
I know, I get dinged. I'm sure I'll have to buy you a coffee for
Ding.
that. But for me, fighting felt like I would get really sweaty, and I don't like to sweat. My nickname is Sweaty Betty, for those of you that know me.
We all know how much you love that.
Oh boy. But you know what? Conquering felt very empowering to me. And I would say I'm in the midst of conquering cancer as I was in the journey. And I, at this point today, I am in remission, and I'm really, really grateful. And I don't want to be cavalier for those of you that are in the midst of your journey. And so if you choose to say I'm battling cancer or I'm struggling with cancer, you do that.
Yeah.
I just felt like it positioned me in a more empowering way. I never said, why me, God? I just said, why not me, God?
Mhm.
And you know what? We'll figure this out. And I will leave it one day. And you know what? I've accepted that. I'm
Mhm.
not going to fight that.
Yeah.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to fight the temptation to have, 7 margaritas, because you know what, alcohol and breast cancer from my perspective don't play well together.
Yeah.
I'm going to put my energy into not eating 17, you know pumpkin bread muffins, because sugar doesn't serve me well. And
Mhm.
so I wanted to put my energy into things that would give me the results I was shooting for, and that was for health.
Yes. Yes. You know, it kind of reminds me of when I was doing that 6-week mental fitness thing in the app for PQ with your coaching. One of the videos that Shirzad shared, and it was when we were talking about, I think it was about the possibilities, right? Like finding the gift even in the hard thing. And the example he used was one of the most tough to take was, what's the even if somebody dies, and even if somebody dies tragically, obviously that's a terrible thing, and you're going to go through all the things you go through. But there's a gift in there, and it's up to you to figure out what that gift is. And so, like when I went through my personal trials and a couple years ago, and left a really abusive relationship, I was scared. I was a deer in headlights. And then when I started to realize that I had choices to decide how I feel, it was like I can either choose to curl up in a ball under the covers. And you know what? Sometimes I may need to do that for 10 minutes. But or I can choose a different way. And I can choose to take a look at, well, what part did I bring in that? What do I need to shift? What's under my control? And I also realized that I didn't have to see myself as a victim. So similar to, I mean, we all have our challenges, whether it's cancer or it's a life transition or it's a death in the family or whatever. But it's incumbent on us at some point to kind of pause and take a look at what the blessing is. And sometimes the blessing could just be, and not just, but the support of others. That's the blessing, that other people are there to hold you.
So I really believe that it's important that we find out what our purpose is.
Yeah.
And I was just having this conversation earlier with a woman who's been in the political arena for the last 17 years.
Yep.
And she's a wise woman. And she and I agreed that our purpose comes from suffering.
Hmm.
And I think that if we will look at times of suffering as times of possibility and potential and purpose, you know, we've lost friends, you and I, in the last year, and a dear friend gave us perspective for this friend's celebration of life. We can spend the time dwelling on the missing, which can take us down,
Hmm.
or we can spend our time on the remembering. And I believe that that person that we lost earlier this past year was a gift to me. And I'm a better person because of that relationship. And I
Hmm.
really, really, really miss her. And what serves me and her legacy is remembering her.
Yeah. Right.
And so it's a choice.
Hmm.
And the things we dwell on will inform our actions. And so again, mind your mind.
Hmm. Right. Well, I think that's a very poignant thought to start to wind down our conversation. So I always get so absorbed in talking with you, Betsy, and I'm so grateful for the messages that you share in your own Betsy-ized way. And so let's talk a little bit about as we wind down. If people who are watching this on the replay, and thank you for watching, and those of you who are still in the room here, if anybody wants to reach out to you, we've got some banners we can put up, but you could reach out to Betsy on LinkedIn. But what are some other ways that people can reach out? And maybe you want to tell us a little bit about your co-authored book, Voices of Hope.
Oh, well, I think the fastest way to get a hold of me is to go to my website. And if we could put that, yep, right there. I love it. On it.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you,
Jim.
I have resources on my website that are ways for you to engage further, or if you want to set up a time for a connection call and explore some of the things that you've heard or you question or you disagree with. I will turn it around to points of commonality. And I think that's a great way to connect. I was part of a book called Voices of Hope, and it was written by several of my friends. And I think it's a really great book to have right by your bedside. And I know these compilation books, people go, oh, yeah, it's just one chapter. Well, you have so many different voices. And so maybe my chapter doesn't resonate for you, but there's so many other worthwhile looks at how to view hope. And right now, I think hope is a beautiful thing to be focusing on.
I agree, especially today.
Especially today.
And that's all I'll say about that. Betsy, I can't thank you enough. Your email is up there. So Betsy at coach2 with the numeral 2, strengths, pluralize.com, because we actually, my Coffee with Kate show appears in video format, but it's also a podcast. And so just audio. So that's why I always have to sort of spell things out here so that everybody can hear, get the message when they're listening to it on a podcast. So Betsy, is there any one last juicy nugget you want to leave us with, or do you feel like you've covered the bases?
I get emotional about this, but it's an invitation for you to get to know you, because I think of Dr. Seuss. We did a bid for him years and years ago in Del Mar, and nobody can do you quite like you can do you. And it just makes me want to go into my Mimi mode and start reading Dr. Seuss to all of you on this show, but we're winding down. But really take the time to learn more about who you are and what it is you want, because you are so much stronger than you realize, and you're smarter than you know. And I want to give you permission to go and explore what you're hungering for, because your desires matter. And we need you to step up to the plate, especially women today.
Yes, exactly. Betsy, I can't thank you enough. Please, as soon as we stop the broadcast, if you could please stay on for a minute. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to my Coffee with Kate podcast today, Brewing Business Brilliance for Entrepreneurs. And I think even though a lot of what Betsy talked with you about today is somewhat personal, it all relates to how we live our lives, both personally and in our businesses. And especially for those of us who are entrepreneurs and we are our own brand, it resonates, especially for all of us. So thank you all for being on here today. And Betsy, thank you for making the time and sharing your wisdom and being such a sage in my life and in many others as well. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.